Bethesda is worse than you thought.
Have seen a momentous rise in the open world 3D role-playing game. And
This guy does talk slow.
One company adopting new technologies.
It features all new rendering, lighting, and landscape technology.
Pushing new boundaries and breaking new ground.
Look at this man.
And spearheading this company, one boyishly handsome man. It had been a rocky last few years, but in late 2023, he and the team were in the final works of their next game, the biggest game they'd ever made. More content than their last two games combined, he said. Ready to sweep the Game Awards, as he was now well accustomed. He puts on his leather jacket.
I'm a big Bethesda fan, so.
Emerges once more. But first,
and I'll tell you, Starfield was not as good as some other games.
It's the 80s, and a man by the name of Christopher Weaver is a person. He'd been doing a few different things. Assistant directing for PBS and ABC, engineering work for MIT, Panavision, and the military, and then some consultancy work on the side. However, sometime around 1985, one of his engineers fancies making an American football game. So Weaver dips his toe into game development and starts work on an engine for it. It's now 1986, and they've just set up shop in a small office in Bethesda, a census-designated place in Maryland. They incorporate and then smash out the game Gridiron by the end of the year. It's one of the first sports games to factor in things like momentum and collision detection, and features fairly sophisticated movement mechanics for the time. The graphics
I knew about this.
Jaw-dropping. And the game does all right.
This is what Bethesda made before
the contract to work on a football game together. However, this ends
RPGs.
As it turns out, the whole thing was allegedly just a ploy to steal their engine code. Anyway,
but at this point, Todd Howard was like a small child.
It's now the 90s. Expansion. There's now around 20 people at Bethesda, and a lot more going on. So they make the move from Bethesda to a bigger office in Rockville. This place is actually a place. Also, turns out no one currently owns the Terminator license. So
and I think this is where Todd Howard lived and would go by there frequently asking for a job, and they wouldn't let him work there because he was too young.
Nice. Relaxing. Pretty chill. Wait, what's that? My god. In World of Warships, things are different. Command a huge naval fleet and take part in massive battles. Pick from a vast selection of history's most iconic ships and commanders, painstakingly modelled from historical documents to complete accuracy. Aircraft carriers, battleships, cruisers, different weather effects. Prefer PvE over PvP, 40 maps and 20 ports. Also, a free new Headless Horseman ship skin and commander, or use the code Headless, and a free shoe that one of Bethesda's hockey game battles. It's around 1992 that one of Bethesda's hockey games ends up in the hands of a boy. Now at this point, Todd Howard is young, unassuming. He'd been studying finance in college, but his real passion was PC gaming. You'd often find him beelining from classes to the school computers to install and play games. And he's a big fan of the chess club. But right now, he really likes this hockey game, and turns out, the developer isn't actually that far away. In fact, they were literally on the way back from his college. So in 1990,
that's what I was saying.
He knocks on the door and asks for a job. They tell him no. Finish school first. He graduates and asks again. Sorry, kiddo. Don't have anything. So Todd gets a job at a different game developer nearby. This job allows him to go to electronics conventions like CES, where developers could show off their new stuff. This is at a point where games are still kind of seen as a joke, and the gaming section is literally tossed at the back. You had to walk past hordes of porn vendors to even get there. But anyway, Todd would use these conventions to track down Bethesda's stalls and continue confessing his love. After around a year and a half of this, in 1994, they finally have an opening, and Todd Howard is in. Now at this point, Bethesda
how long did it take him? 2 years?
And Terminator games, and things
to get in?
A bit stale. So they've decided to branch out, and right around the time Todd had joined, they're putting the finishing touches on something completely different. Headed by a man named Julian Jensen,
the music.
And with a team of around 10 people, the Elder Scrolls Arena had now been in development for around 3 years. It had started out as a simple, linear gladiator combat game, but ambitions quickly ballooned. They added side quests, fantasy elements, and some exploration around the cities. And after some playtesting, you know what? Fuck the arenas. Let's open this whole thing up. And before long, they're building a fully fledged, open-world role-playing game with side quests, explorable cities, and procedural generation. It's ambitious. They'd had to create their own proprietary engine specifically for it, and other developers are actually laughing at its scope. But in late 1993, it's nearing release.
Sometimes it fits.
They'd completely switched genres, but the original game's marketing materials had already been printed, resulting in a front cover and half the name having nothing to do with the actual game. At this point,
I actually never played Arena, and I don't plan on going that far back.
so they end up just sticking with it. And in 1994, the game hits shelves, and people...
I wasn't even born yet.
Looks nice. The storyline isn't amazing, the quests are pretty linear, the graphics are only okay, and on launch, the game is absolutely fucked. There are random crashes, falling through floors, corrupt save files, and visible enemies, quest items not spawning, enemies just...
So, wait, all of the bugs have been there from the beginning. This isn't new. This is just what you should expect. It's been 30 years of bugs and nonsense in these
It
games.
starts out like any other dungeon crawler at the time, but leave that first dungeon, and you can go anywhere. For starters, the game is absolutely massive. Its map spans an entire procedurally generated continent, clocking in around 9 million square kilometers.
Wait, you can travel the whole continent in the game? You can go to Skyrim in Arena?
There are hundreds of towns, cities, dungeons, and quests to dig through, although again, these are mostly procedurally generated. There's also a ton of NPCs. All are procedurally named, and have their own professions. They'll even run away if your weapon's drawn. Arena also has a pretty detailed character creation system, with various races, 18 classes, and an attribute system. Also, a cool spellcrafting system, a dynamic weather system, and is that a persistent day and night cycle? Pretty rare at the time. At night, shops even...
I was gonna say,
and just like
for 1994, the game is doing a lot of things. Like procedurally generated stuff, the day and night cycle, all that.
Monsters and other creatures start to appear. And the game goes on
What?
to sell around 100,000 copies.
It's
Not a
back?
massive success, but it's alright. And Bethesda hits the
Oh,
ground for a sequel.
shit. I like hit the space bar and then it brought it back.
It's now the mid-90s.
Because I was still
There are
like
about
the last
40
thing I
people at
clicked
Bethesda,
on was
and
the
Todd is
streaming
having his first
program.
major job. Producer and designer on their next Terminator game, Future Shock, with a team of about 8 people. This is one of the first first-person shooters to feature true 3D environments, thanks to their cutting-edge in-house game engine, X Engine. It's also one of the first PC games with full 3D mouse look, meaning you can now look up and down. Despite all
Interesting.
of that, it doesn't sell too well. But at the same time,
How did that not
development of
sell?
Arena's sequel
Makes me
is
want to
now
try and
well
play
underway,
it.
and Daggerfall is shaping up to be one of the largest and most ambitious RPGs ever made. They now had a bigger dev team, around 15 people. However, development is still not fun. 7-hour workdays, 18 months of crunch, some weeks
7-hour
60 hours on the
workdays?
clock minimum. All managers would be screaming. Things are so bad. The Terminator game devs are
That's
pulled in to
nothing.
help out. They have limited technology to work with and a far tighter deadline. And again, there are new ideas and features constantly bloating the scope of the game. With a ton of things
Me
eventually
eating
having to
pizza.
in-depth housing furnishing, warring factions, cities under siege, advanced AI, and even multiplayer, all mixed. Naturally, the team is fairly stressed. A decent chunk of staff dip from the company, and one is even hospitalized for a breakdown. Development
Oh
of
my
this game
gosh.
is such a nightmare, it's almost the end of Bethesda Softworks. But in 1996, after almost 3 years of development, Daggerfall comes out the other side, and it's very good. It also sells very well, shifting over 100.
Well, the guy nearly
copies in
died. I
just
hope
a
it's
few
good.
days, and eventually settling at almost 1 million. Again, the game is huge. This time it's set in a smaller, but more fleshed out segment of the continent. This time with around 15,000 towns and cities. And
Where
almost
was
a
it?
More fleshed out
Oh,
segment
okay.
of the continent. This time with around 15,000
This is
towns and
Daggerfall.
cities, and almost 1 million NPCs, who are now also racist. The map is now about 200,000 square kilometers, almost the size of the UK.
You were what?
And this time it's fully consistent, meaning you can actually walk from town to town. One guy on Reddit says walking the map corner to corner took him around 69 hours. Nice. It's also on Bethesda's new X engine, so enjoy all of that in true 3D. And
How long does it take to
Daggerfall is
walk across
packed with
Skyrim?
features,
They said 69 hours?
corner to corner,
Oh wait, they said in here.
meaning you can actually walk from town to town. One guy on Reddit
Skyrim took 1 hour and 50 minutes, and Daggerfall took 69 hours. Maybe I wonder if how fast you travel though in
says
Daggerfall.
walking the map corner to corner took him around 69. House and ship purchases, a detailed banking system with letters of credit and loans, horseback travel, an actual legal system with court sessions, and holidays with actual effects on the in-game world. Daggerfall is also a far more in-depth RPG. There are massive upgrades to the character system. It now features 35 skill lines, including parkour, speechcraft,
Ooh,
and the
no.
ability to learn enemy languages. Also, instead of leveling up and manually choosing which skills to improve, skills go up by just doing the skill. There are also now joinable factions, like the Fighters, Thieves, and Mages Guild. an upgraded dialogue system, and a whole reputation system to boot, with factions, cities, provinces, lower classes, and upper classes all having their own opinion of you.
If you start a fight with me, you thug scum.
Your alignment with factions even changes the end of the game. Naturally, Daggerfall ends up being an absolutely huge install, around 400 megabytes. Bear in mind though, this is at a time where most games clock in at around 10 megabytes, and hard drives only
40 times the size of a normal game.
really go up to about 1 gigabyte. Again, it's also very hard to run, and the game
And
has
that would be just under half your whole hard drive.
This is actually much worse than Arenas, so Bethesda gets back on the patch mill, but even still, the game remains very buggy.
Right now, Starfield is like a quarter of my small hard drive.
This day. In December 1997, they release a linear dungeon crawler called Elder Scrolls Battlespire. It does terribly. In October 1998, they release Elder Scrolls Redguard. This is a 3D action-adventure game.
I uninstalled it.
It also does terribly.
I uninstalled Starfield. If I don't play a game for, I don't know, a month, I don't play it. I mean, if I don't play it, I uninstall it after a month.
In fact, these games...
But that's also because I had it on Game Pass and I'm not paying for Game Pass. But I should, because I have to do the... I got the DLC for Starfield. I got the DLC, but I didn't buy the game. I just got it through Game Pass. So I have to go back and finish that. But I heard it wasn't even that great. So
do so badly. The company's now in financial ruin because of them, and they're now downsizing massively.
Yes, I was in the chess club.
During this time, a ton of devs hit the road, including Julian LaFay,
especially
to the original team.
With all the videos I have on my computer, editing and all that stuff.
Things are bad. So in an attempt to get their hands on some more cash, Bethesda restructures. And in 1999, Chris Weaver brings in a guy called Robert Altman to co-found ZeniMax Media, Bethesda Softworks' new parent company. Now Altman is a well-connected lawyer, and with him now in the picture, Bethesda can get some serious investment.
Better Call Saul,
steps
bro.
down from CEO to CTO, and Altman steps up. Robert Altman has a completely clean history with no scandals at all. A couple years later, and in 2001, the publishing and development arms of Bethesda split. The publishing arm staying as Bethesda Softworks, and the development team becoming Bethesda Game Studios. They all remain in the same building. However, there's a situation brewing. The dot-com bubble has just burst, and trillions of dollars are currently being vaporized from the stock market. Bethesda is hit hard, and now even more developers are leaving or getting the sack. On the board of directors, serious bad vibes.
Not nice.
They're currently doubting the whole enterprise, and there's growing tensions between Weaver and other executives, but particularly Robert Altman. Weaver is focused on the technology and innovation in the games, Altman on the finances and profits of the company, and these clash. And eventually, it comes to a head. And Altman usurps the throne.
You know how much I sacrificed?
He kicks Weaver out of his own company entirely in 2002.
First time.
And stacks the board with his own guys. This results in a nasty lawsuit. It's around the same time that the few developers left at Bethesda are putting their heads together for what they think could be their last game. When work on Morrowind began, things didn't look great. After a big wave of layoffs, there are about 30 people left at the company.
I didn't know it was this bad.
Of just 7 people. As the director of the Elder Scrolls Redguard, as well as one of the few developers actually left, Todd is now the project lead. And in late 2001, he calls in the boys. Listen lads, this could well be the very...
It's crazy. He went from going there every day, knocking on the door, begging for a job. I think he said he would sweep the floor. He didn't even care. He just wanted to be there. And now he's how long? 9 years to be able to run Morrowind.
See, Morrowind originally started out much grander in scope, but they'd made that mistake twice before, and development wasn't a great time. This time, they did not miss. So Todd's decided to play it back a bit and attempt a more focused development. The procedural stuff, that's getting flashed. This thing was going to be fully handcrafted from the ground up. Also, that 3D engine of theirs, in the bin too. They're now using an engine called Gamebryo, and naturally, this new engine changes the game a lot.
This guy's really funny.
To create a far more detailed world, enhanced graphics, physics, and lighting. Also, more complex scripting and AI.
Talk to me. Who's
was there. If you talk to someone while invisible, they react to that. Todd, you've done it again. Despite all of this, development is still horrific, with 7-day work weeks at points. But after a small delay to May 2002, after 5 years, the next Elder Scrolls is ready to release. Morrowind is a completely new Elder Scrolls experience. Instead of the procedural towns, cities, and quests, players step foot into a rich, handcrafted world, just bursting with detail.
He's out of control, this box.
Not just the world. Pretty much every NPC, including random bandits, are handcrafted too, with their own custom names, stats, and often backstories or notes. Its storyline is very well written. It spans politics, philosophy, and religion, and it's all layered and ambiguous.
I don't know what it is. I just feel like games nowadays, they don't put all of that work into creating what feels like a world that they live in, that the people live in. If you don't have that, then you lose the immersion. And that's what makes people want to keep playing and playing and playing.
Every quest in the game, also handcrafted, and includes a ton of player choice throughout.
Dark Souls, FromSoft is really good at it.
That are approachable in different ways.
Elden Ring is great.
Too. You can kill every
You just want to keep playing and playing and playing.
Ruins your main quest.
What have I done?
There's basically no fast travel beyond paid transportation services from city to city, and there's no quest markers, or even a compass. If you want to finish a quest or track somewhere or someone down, you'll have to ask the locals. The world itself, unique indeed. Interesting architecture, outlandish creatures, and big mushrooms.
Why is everybody still wasting their time trying to learn how to skip ads? Just download Pi and...
Wait, why is my ad blocker not working?
And due to the new engine, it's alive, with items all over the map that you can pick up and drop. Also, this time round, they've gone with a guy called Jeremy Soule for the soundtrack. And new music, good. NPCs get an upgrade. There's now some light voice acting, and the game introduces a disposition system, meaning every NPC either likes you or hates you depending on your personality, speechcraft, general reputation, and race.
Okay, you're good to go.
Morrowind also introduces leveled zones. See, a ton of enemies in the last 2 games scaled to the player's level. You leveled up a bunch and improved your skills. Well, unlucky. So has everyone else. But here, certain areas will have higher level enemies and loot, meaning exploration is more dangerous, but more rewarding as you get better. On PC, Morrowind also ships with the Elder Scrolls construction set, essentially the original dev tools Bethesda had used to actually make the game. Every aspect of the game, from landscapes to graphics,
Really?
quests, anything you could hope for, are now open to modification. It's not all
You were
the combat in Morrowind is
able to
incredibly
modify it
simple
right
and
out of the
lots of light
box?
Just very
They
clearly
wanted
at
you
guide
to?
point blank range. No,
That's
turns out you
crazy.
missed. Also,
I didn't know
bad
that.
balancing, and there are a few things missing from Daggerfall. The lock bashing, climbing, housing and ships, banking system, force travel, in-game holidays, and legal system all gone. And of course, again, the game is buggy, suffers from bad performance, and is hard to run. But overall, Morrowind is an amazing game, and it flies off shelves. It's revolutionary, a way bigger success than they'd ever anticipated. It sells over 4 million copies in the first 3 years. Critical acclaim, coming in from all directions. It's even crowned the Game of the Year. Bethesda also shipped it on the original Xbox for the first time. This is at a time where RPGs are more PC focused, so it's now reaching a whole new market, and it goes on to be the 18th best-selling game on that console. Morrowind conjures a massive profit, and Bethesda finally has some financial breathing room. After Morrowind, Todd is hailed as a king, Bethesda's savior. Under his direction, he'd brought the company back from the brink, so naturally, he's back in the cockpit for their next project. Bethesda also doubles up their workforce with some of that new cash. They've also just gone in on new technology. For the first time, they're playing around with the Havoc physics engine, alongside a new world rendering system. They're also bulking up on the voice acting. In Morrowind, only a few key characters were voiced, but here, Todd wants everyone. And the script for the game ends up at around
Everyone gets a
40,000
voice.
lines of dialogue. That's about 50 hours of audio. An issue. This ends up taking over half the game's file size, so they end up having to trim thousands of voice lines and a ton of already developed game features, just so it'd fit on the 360 disc. Like the first game, arenas were supposed to be in every
Damn.
city in the game, and it was all pretty much done here. But again, it had to go. May 2005.
So the 360 was the limiting factor.
Todd jumps on the mic himself and fills us in on his new Radiant AI system.
Let's take a look at the other side of the game, our new Radiant AI system. It allows NPCs to have full 24/7 schedules. These NPCs are not scripted.
In the demo,
Seems legit.
he even shows off a bit of his own voice acting.
What? That really pisses me off.
Oh no, what do we do? I'm so scared.
Anyway, 4 years in the oven, and on the 20th of March 2006, Elder Scrolls Oblivion is finally ready. And again, it's good. The combat is far better. For starters, you can now actually hit things. And when you do, the new Havoc physics engine makes for incredibly realistic, true-to-life ragdoll.
It's very true to
If you
life.
can see something, chances are you can now pick it up and swing it round. The graphics are also much better. Just don't look at the NPCs. The new rendering system allows for huge load distances, meaning none of that thick fog that was literally everywhere in Morrowind.
Oh, Tom
And the
Scott,
world is
he's really good
populated with
actually.
luscious, thick
He makes good videos.
shrubbery,
But he
and
stopped
smooth
making,
technology called
or
speed
he's
tree.
slowing down the videos he makes.
So, again, enjoy all of this with another amazing soundtrack from Jeremy Soule. While the main quest is incredibly repetitive, the side quests and faction quest lines in Oblivion, sublime. They're really well written and very fun. In fact, they're generally considered to be the best in the series. The Dark Brotherhood questline is especially popular. And of course, all NPCs are now voiced.
Not bad. Good to hear. Goodbye. Goodbye.
He's
Even
just
some
standing in
celebrities.
lava.
However, this doesn't come without issues.
Oh, the AI
There are
can't
over
figure that out.
1,000 NPCs in the game, and there are only around 10 voice actors between them. Naturally, you'll be hearing some of those voices a lot. One guy alone voices every single guard in the game, and a ton of other characters.
Stop right there, criminal scum. Stop. You violated the law. I'm a guard, and I love my job. If you run into trouble, come find me.
Players also notice
And he's
some of the voice
Sheogorath,
acting
wow.
isn't amazing. Turns out, when recording the voice lines, Bethesda had opted not to go in order of conversations, characters, or even just chronologically, but to go through every voice actor's line alphabetically, meaning voice actors had pretty much no idea what the actual context of their lines were. Brilliant. Actors also just switch voices
What?
randomly halfway through dialogue.
I could.
That's like saying something. That's like saying a
Nice.
sentence in a random conversation that you don't know what it's about, and you don't know what kind of style or what kind of inflection or what kind of tone to put on that line.
Okay.
That's random.
Okay, I'll show you.
And legitimate voice acting mistakes are just left in the game.
All on the same night.
It's just craziness. It doesn't even make any
I
sense.
heard the thieves broke.
Fans had also noticed something new. A lot of features from the older games were missing. What happened? Well, back during development, and Todd had looked at Morrowind. We made a great RPG here, boys. A ton of freedom. How can we remove and streamline as much of it as possible? And they got to work. Morrowind's nuanced storyline with conflicting goals and intersecting quest lines between
They've been removing that freedom since the beginning, huh?
factions. Cool, but confusing. Too much choice. Make it far simpler and completely linear. Also, let's remove any skill requirements for advancing in factions. So now literally anyone can become the head of any faction. You're playing a bare-knuckle barbarian who's never used a spell in his life. Excellent choice for the head of the Mages Guild.
Yeah, I was gonna
It
say
really
it
cool how we
doesn't
let
make
players
no
kill
sense.
anyone in Morrowind, but too much room for error. Remove that feature and make a ton of NPCs invincible. Morrowind's quests were pretty good, but there's way too much thinking involved. Let's slap a compass on the bottom of the screen with a constant quest marker on top, so players can mindlessly follow it around for the entire game. with no
Ooh,
option to
bright
turn it
light.
off. Scaled leveling. Let's bring it back.
It's rewind time.
Let's also bring back generic, procedural enemy spawns. And let's implement them so badly, all enemy spawns eventually become huge damage sponges that can take you out in a few hits unless you level efficiently. It's apparently actually easier to complete the game at level 1 than any other level because the enemies get so OP.
Yeah, that was bullshit.
It is evolving, just backwards.
Also, is that petty bandit donning Daedric armor and weapons? In Morrowind, the main way of fast traveling is paying for public transport that takes you from city to city. But for Oblivion, let's just add free fast travel from anywhere on the map, so you can go anywhere you've discovered, at any point, at no cost. Now let's remove a ton of skills. Dumb down spellcrafting, and remove spears, throwing weapons, medium armor, and a ton of spells. Perfect. And by this point, players are noticing
Why did they remove all
with
this?
Bethesda games. They had a certain charm to them, and Oblivion was no different. Despite Bethesda releasing a number of patches, a ton of bugs are still present, so modders just end up creating their own patch for the game, fixing bugs that Bethesda never did. The jank was expected, but players had noticed something new with Oblivion. There were some inconsistencies between what Todd had promised
These NPCs are not scripted.
and what players had actually purchased. See, at E3, Todd had made some pretty big claims about their new Radiant AI. This new AI would include full schedules for every single NPC in the game and incredibly complex AI scripting, true NPC intelligence. Guards now patrol the cities and react to in-game events and your reputation. Regular NPCs even follow daily routines and eat, sleep, farm, work, and socialize at specific times and in specific areas. They'd now also have conversations not just with the player, but with each other. Todd and the team had even spent time and a ton of money having conversations in real life.
Okay, so we're
and spent
taking a step
hours
forward.
them for in-game adaptation. They come out incredibly lifelike.
A vampire hunter named Raymil Draelus made his way into town, snuck into his house and killed him.
Good day.
Good to see you. I don't know
Oh.
you, and I don't care to know you. I don't know you, and
Let's
I
hear
don't
it.
care to know you.
Did you?
I don't know you, and I don't care to know
What's
you.
this about?
I don't know you, and I don't care.
But turns out,
He doesn't
on
care to
release,
know him.
The NPCs weren't quite as intelligent as Todd had let on.
Nilos, hello. That NPC said the other NPC's name. That never happens.
So she's picked up a bow over here.
Wait, what?
She's decided she needs ammo, so she equips the quiver.
NPCs
And
never
she
did
can
that.
practice her skills. So she's going to drink this potion. It's going to increase her marksman skill.
Dude, that's crazy cool. That was never in Oblivion. None of this made it into the game. The AI was so dumb.
Bethesda would go on to claim the AI was too smart and had to be dumbed down.
Snow. We need more snow. Can't have enough snow.
The AI was too powerful.
Indeed.
Then, post-launch,
It had to be
Bethesda crank
dumbed
out new
down.
expansions like they did with Morrowind. They're highly rated. However, this time round, they're also selling small, downloadable item packs on the store. And the first of these, a $2.50 piece of
The cursed horse armor
Bethesda
pack.
had just released one of the industry's first microtransactions. Naturally, people aren't too happy.
How much horse armor did you sell?
People will buy anything.
But regardless, despite the complaints,
He didn't even want to
Star
say.
actually works wonders again. The game
He
goes
said people
mainstream
will buy
and does very
anything.
well, selling over 2 million copies within the first few weeks. And
How many people bought horse armor?
and does very well, selling over
If there was 1.7 million copies sold in the first week or whatever, that's not even a lot. Half of them bought horse armor,
2
maybe?
million copies within the first few weeks, and becoming one of the fastest selling 360 titles at the time. Also,
That's an extra $2.50, $2.50 for nothing.
Oblivion had taken 4 years and a ton of cash. So ZeniMax says, hey, we should probably get something else going here. And Todd and the boys make a list. They go through various genres, but eventually, one rises to the top: nuclear post-apocalypse. What Todd really wants to do is a Fallout, but getting the rights to that IP, highly unlikely. So they work on concepts for a new IP they were calling Apocalypse Road. However, at Interplay, Fallout's current rights holders, and finances aren't looking great. It's so bad that it even been in talks to sell the series back to its original creators. Well, turns out someone at Bethesda knows someone at Interplay, and they'd managed to sneak in a bid themselves. And Todd and the boys managed to snag the whole franchise for around $6 million. Not bad. And with a dev team now of around 75 people, they get to work. This time round, Todd has a bit of a task ahead of him. They're working with the same Gamebryo engine from Oblivion, meaning they now have to turn the bones of a hack-and-slash fantasy game into a dense, urban, post-apocalyptic shooter. They're building gun combat from scratch here, and on one of the jankiest engines out there. But after a few years, things start to come together, and the game's in the final stretch. So as is now
Oh man, trying to get Elder Scrolls to shoot
and runs us through the
a gun.
We're ecstatic to show publicly for the first time here today Fallout 3 demoed live. Let's take a look. Here we have an iBot broadcasting the word of the U.S. government.
I will fight to protect you. I am your president of law and order.
Wait, what?
The cats. They're eating the pets.
On the 28th of October 2008, Fallout 3 comes out. Now, the first two Fallouts, generally considered two of the best RPGs ever made, so the bar for Fallout 3, pretty high, but Bethesda delivers, on a few points. First off, they'd nailed the look and tone. Fallout 3 carries the aesthetics of the first two games into 3D well.
It was perfect.
Bleak and gritty, retro-futuristic, a dash of dark humour, and then that 2000s piss filter slapped on top. Chef's kiss. The soundtrack, this time by new composer, Inonzer, a smash hit again. And if you're not a fan, just hit the new in-game radio and roam the post-apocalyptic wasteland, absolutely annihilating people to pleasant 40s jazz. The map has amazing environmental storytelling.
You'll find skeletons at the vault door, remains of people pleading and begging to be let in and saved from this approaching doom.
And some pretty interesting locations, like a vault filled with endless clones of a man named Gary. And the Republic of
Gary
Dave.
Topoulos.
I am Dave, President of the Republic of Dave. You will address me as Mr. President, or I will have you executed.
There's also slavery.
Mister, can you get us out of here? Thanks for nothing.
He has a collar on that would explode if he
The
left.
tower. Oh, really? You goddamn bigot.
Genocide. And political undertones. The gameplay, not amazing.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
Janky, floaty movement, combined with awkward gunplay, can make for some horrific shootouts. So Bethesda adapts the VAT system from the first 2 games. Meaning you can now pause the game, lock onto specific body parts, and blow people to pieces in cinematic slow motion. And the people...
You have to use the VATs. You don't have to use VATs, but you really should. And I thought that's what made it interesting.
The game reuses a ton of voice actors, resulting in everyone sounding the exact same. One of your companions even has the same exact voice as every raider in the game. The combat AI sucks.
Oh, that's weird.
They have no concept of cover, so they'll just strafe left and right and beeline straight towards you. And of course, the usual Bethesda jank. Game breaking, quest breaking, file corrupting bugs, crashes, horrific performance on PS3, and the realistic ragdolls return. There's also no field of view slider on PC, even though you can easily change it via console commands. Also, again, the RPG elements. Where are they? Some elements from the originals have come back. Drug addiction, the special system, perks, skills, and speech options. But even then, some of them are gimmicked. For starters, speech. The dialogue in Elder Scrolls games basically amounted to running up to someone and just shouting boomers at them. But this wouldn't cut it for a Fallout game, which had tons of choice and consequences in dialogue. And in Fallout 3, it's much worse. Fallout's original speech checks are subtle. The game doesn't actually show you speech options you haven't unlocked, and doesn't even tell you when it is a unique option. So you need to actually read and think about what you pick. In Fallout 3, even if your speech isn't high enough, the system works on percentages. So either way, you still have a chance.
Yeah, that percent system was whack. You could cheat the system. Oh shit, here we go again.
Make a major difference in the way things panned out, and would also often vary based on specific skills, special attributes, or traits. But for 3, Todd just said nah, let's stick with just speech, and a handful of instances with very select perks.
New Vegas does it really well.
Far less consequential. The first 2 Fallout games
they knew exactly what to do.
RPGs with branching storylines, open-ended quests, and a ton of skill checks. Also, a ton of impactful
what is going
decisions that shaped
on?
the world around the player and contributed to a ton of different endings. But, like for Oblivion, the quests in Fallout 3 very linear. You're on a fixed path for pretty much the whole game, and most quests have one outcome. And that one outcome normally involves this. The first game also allowed you to kill everyone in the game. Here, 1/3 of the characters are now unkillable. Before, you'd work to piece together breadcrumbs of information from NPCs, work out where to go and what to do, and the world and quests would open up organically from there. But in Fallout 3, again, they slap a quest marker on your screen, and you end up just following that for the rest of the game. The
Glowy shiny marker.
In 1 and 2, resources were scarce, and you had to plan accordingly. But not here. There are weapons and armor laying about everywhere, and it's not long before you're absolutely loaded with caps and ammo, and constantly over-encumbered. Bethesda adds enemies.
Yeah, if anyone has a good video for us to watch, you can let us know.
Both Fallout 1 and 2, and Oblivion and Morrowind, had joinable factions, but for Fallout 3, nah, leave it out. Can't join them, and there's not even a reputation system for them. Instead, they're just
NPCs only.
Fallout 2, and this is a bit flawed. Did you just steal a shoe?
What are you doing?
Nothing. Me? Just hanging around.
Well, the whole town is now coming to murder you. As a result of all of this, Fallout is essentially no longer an RPG. It's an action RPG with bad action. Also, by this point, key writers and designers dating back to Morrowind had begun to leave the company. Not good. So Todd sniffs around for a designers dating back to Morrowind had begun to leave the company. Not good. So Todd sniffs around for replacements, and eventually, he lands on a bloke called Emil Paliarulo, the guy who wrote Oblivion's Dark Brotherhood questline. He's now head writer and designer.
Roofing, I got you.
The Dark Brotherhood questline was really good, so that's a good choice. One problem. This guy's actually not great, and now he's no longer working on individual quests, more like the whole overarching story.
Yeah, that'll look good.
Themes, choices, and consequences for the entire game. As a result, Fallout 3's story and quest design, very underwhelming. The entire main quest consists of just following the trail of your dad out in the wasteland, and then being bossed around by other people. It's completely linear, with only a couple of choices determined by a single press of a button right at the end. There aren't no choices in the game. See, Emil actually has a very big overarching question. Do you want to be extremely good or cartoonishly bad? Because those are your only choices. In 1 and 2, choices are generally nuanced. There are pros and cons to each option, but here, no. Here, you can absolutely annihilate this entire town with
Here's a nuke.
No reason,
blow up a
or
town.
not do that.
Consequences? None.
Dilemma.
You get a nice
The
house.
characters are bland, and the writing is generally pretty terrible.
Ghouls living here? You're serious?
This is some dialogue from what's supposed to be the dramatic climax of the game.
Do whatever you want. There's no need for more violence.
Then you will immediately hand over all materials related to this project.
Run. Run.
What is he doing there?
Also, end up nuking that whole town, killing everyone there for absolutely no reason. This is your dad's response.
I have a hard time believing you. I raised you to be better than that. Better than the wastes. We'll talk more about this later.
At the end of the game, the story's supposed to culminate in the player sacrificing themselves in a chamber of radiation to save the wasteland. Hold on, I have a radiation-resistant super mutant right next to me. He can go in, save everyone, and then no one has to die.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was so weird.
No.
People complain, and writers
He's like,
eventually
I
give
could
in,
do
so
it, but I
feel adding
won't.
this ending in with a paid DLC.
And so it was that the lone wanderer ventured forth from Vault 101, while the child refused to follow the father's selfless example.
The DLC also revives the player, making the whole point of the end of the game redundant. Also, fun fact about this DLC, the intro features a moving train sequence. But because the Gamebryo engine is so crusty, encoding in a moving train would have taken a while. The train is actually a piece of armor the player equips right before the cutscene. Anyway, the original Fallout games had a ton of different endings based on your actions. Here, Todd Howard have claimed an insane 200 endings for the game.
The train is like a head
last week
piece.
Were over 200 endings. That is not an exaggeration.
Fallout 3 had 2 endings. Regardless, the game does amazingly. First week sales of around 5 million. $300 million generated instantly.
You got mail.
And despite the consistent dumbing down and streamlining of their games, Todd does it again. It wins Best RPG at the Game Awards, and a ton of Game of the Year awards at other places. Todd Howard is now 3 for 3.
How could he go wrong?
2010. Bethesda Game Studios is a team of around 100 people, and they're riding high. Both Oblivion and Fallout 3, big wins. Todd had found himself a golden formula here, and he wasn't changing it anytime soon. Now, it had been about 4 years since Oblivion, so the hype for the next Elder Scrolls, quite high. E3 2010. Todd emerges on stage through a sea of vape mist. He weaves between
4 years for an Elder Scrolls game. How long has it been since Skyrim? They waited 4 years for an Elder Scrolls? When did Skyrim come out? 2011? Been 14 years. What?
Todd seems different. He's sporting a slick brown leather jacket.
I love leather.
On his face, a sly smirk.
Yeah, which release of Skyrim really is the question.
Anyway, Elder Scrolls 5
re-released it 37 times. Dude, what? How has it been so long?
Whatever you say, Mr. Billboard.
A ton of television ads, expensive live trailers, and stuff like this. In promotional material, Todd is getting increasingly unhinged.
When you walk into town, we can have it look for someone with a child. We can have that child kidnapped and put in a dungeon nearby.
Forget the dungeon, children. The game looks fantastic, and it's launching soon. People are very hyped.
Old.
And on the 11th of the 11th, 2011, it's go time.
It was
For
2011.
starters, the art direction here, incredible. Enemies, armor, weapons, and the huge snowy vistas in this game all look fantastic. And as is expected at this point, Jeremy Soul's soundtrack, perfection. They even wrote a whole language for the game, and the main theme is written in both that and English, with identical meanings and rhymes in both. Factions are back, and this time you can actually join them again. There's also a massive civil war going on, and you can only pick one side. Choice. And there's genuinely compelling arguments on both sides. Nuance. What was going on? However, this is just a side quest, and as a result, not a massive amount of time and effort went into it. It's generally considered a bit rushed and lacking in depth. Also, first on Todd's agenda with this game, the engine. At this point, Gamebryo had gotten a bit of a subpar reputation, quite outdated.
That's the day everything changed,
Okay,
November
let's actually
11th,
bring this thing into the
2011.
21st century, boys. And they'd gotten to work on building and improving it. They slapped the name The Creation Engine on, and hoped for a clean slate. Despite the upgrades and rebranding, this wasn't fooling anyone. The engine is still crusty, and as a result of its limitations, this is what a massive, countrywide civil war looks like in Skyrim. Also, the jank in ragdolls, still incredible. The map, not massive, but very dense, and a lot of fun to explore. The graphics, not as groundbreaking as Oblivion, but pretty decent. This time, the new engine allows dynamic lighting and shadows, better physics in ragdolls, and an improved animation system. And NPCs no longer look like melted cheese.
This guy's face is melting.
Enemy scaling is still here, but much better. This time, it has minimum and maximum levels depending on location, so nothing is too hard or too easy. Better combat with smoother animations, cinematic kill moves, and improved magic casting. Dual wielding, dragons, pretty cool. And that awkward dialogue zoom from Oblivion, finally gone.
One of the things you've solved is the old crap zoom into characters' faces when they start talking to you.
Solved as in took it out. Yeah, solved.
Some elements of the AI are also improved. The NPC's line of sight now comes directly out of their eyeballs, just like real life. This also means you can now pick up a bucket, slap it on someone's head, and blind them completely. Real. They'll also now search for you if you're using stealth. However, the AI here, not amazing.
I would just pick something up, walk it away, and then you could steal it when you're out of sight.
And wiped out half a group of bandits from behind a tiny rock. They'll conduct a massive manhunt for you, and then forget about everything in about 15 seconds.
Must have been the wind.
Immersive indeed.
Hey, need something? I'm going to find whoever did this.
However, in a few cases, Oblivion's AI is actually better. Turns out, this time round, Todd's groundbreaking and immersive Radiant AI had been dialed back a bit, and NPCs in Skyrim now rarely, if ever, actually talk to each other, outside of a few scripted moments.
Skibidi was fine until you rizzed along. Simpire was chill AF.
They also love talking over each other.
I'm always interrupting people.
Also, again, a ton of NPCs here are essential.
Ma'am, please die, grandmother! Oh, she's essential. Are you serious?
Todd's formula for game design was simple. Simplification. What can we cut? Streamline, trim the fat, and make this meat lean. And this didn't change for Skyrim. And the first thing on the chopping block? The character system. Attributes? Don't need them, mate. And in Skyrim, they're completely gone. Instead, players just choose to improve either health, stamina, or magicka on level ups. Classes and birth signs? Don't need them either. Skills? We didn't remove enough last time. Acrobatics, athletics, hand-to-hand,
Fixed
and
it.
more. In that bin.
Take it out.
Now let's add a perk system, but no need to get too creative here. If you can't think of something cool, number go up will work just fine. And they were finished. All of this results in no strategy to character creation and leveling, and different characters and playthroughs that feel very samey. The armor. In Oblivion, it's a bit more involved. It was split into helmet, greaves, cuirass, gauntlets, and boots, alongside a clothing robe layer. However, all of this was far too confusing, so Todd decides to dumb it down. The greaves and cuirass,
freaking helmet.
The clothing and robe layer can go
The helmet's too funny,
also,
bro.
Armor and weapons in Oblivion would get damaged over time, with the player either having to pay for repairs or repairing them themselves with the armorer's skill. But in Skyrim, no more. They also remove staffs, ability enchantments, NPC dialogue disposition, and the entire spellcrafting system gone without a trace. The writing. Emil Paliarulo is head writer again, and as a result...
Yeah, it really all was just simplified.
The main quest, Dragon's bad, and they're back. A grave existential threat.
By my calculations, we have 5 years until the world ends. Fix it now!
But other than right at the start of the game, and then a bit later on at a small tower, the dragons don't really actually bother anyone. In the main questline, 90% of the time you're either clearing a dungeon, fighting a dragon, or searching for a powerful word. Side quests are a massive downgrade.
Sigma on the wall.
There are murder mysteries, paintings you can enter, dreams, and so on. Skyrim, not so much. Some good stuff here and there, but they're few and far between. A ton of them basically being fetch this, or that guy. NPCs in Oblivion acknowledge your actions as you progress. You just helped save town down the road. Fair play, mate. Let me get you a pint. In Skyrim, just save the planet from world-ending dragons.
Hang on this all day.
Yeah, alright, mate. No one asked. Also, you're fighting in a massive civil war, and the main difference in outcome is the guards looking slightly different.
I don't know, they all kind of look the same.
You just slaughtered the whole continent's emperor. It makes literally no difference at all.
Nobody cares.
Add some boring dialogue, bland characters with no personality.
Do you get to the Cloud District very often? Oh, what am I saying? Of course you don't.
Of course you don't.
And Emil called it a day.
I'm done. That's it. I'm out.
Then there's the general issues of the game. In Morrowind and Oblivion, factions are scattered across the map and in different cities. Here, they're isolated to one city each. Quest markers are back again, and are now even more prominent on screen. However, this time you can actually turn them off. Nice. But here's the thing. Due to the game's butchered journaling system, it's almost impossible for you to actually work out what to do or where to go without them, making this option completely pointless. At this point, even Bethesda could no longer ignore the bugs. So for Skyrim, they dedicated a whole team pre-launch to hunting them down. It worked perfectly. Skyrim came out in late 2011.
How do you even fix all that?
Also around the time YouTube begins to explode in popularity. And now bug compilations are popping up, and that famous Bethesda charm is being broadcast worldwide. Some bugs more charming than others. But it's alright, Bethesda kick back and relax, because at this point, they know fans will patch the game for them, and modders churn out the unofficial patch within a few months. And for the third time in a row, some things Todd had claimed about his new game pre-launch, debatable.
I don't deserve this kind of shabby treatment.
See, they'd already perfected Radiant AI, so Todd decided on a new thing to show off, Radiant Quests. And Skyrim would feature an infinite amount of them, he tells us. We'd never run out of things to do, and he's not actually wrong.
It's probably a total waste of my time.
However, he also mentions Radiant Story.
Right, so we have this new piece of tech called Radiant Story.
This would be a system where these Radiant quests would be dynamically generated based on the unique factors of your playthrough. Places you've discovered, quests you've completed, and previous interactions. Spend a lot of time with a particular NPC, will probably hire you for a hit, or you'll be hired to hit them. Todd tells us this system will also lead to strange random encounters. Just dropped a sword in the middle of a pub. Chances are, two guys are getting into a scrap over it, he tells us.
Questions?
Good at a particular skill, a random man may even come up to you and ask for training for it.
They didn't have any of that.
The real question is, can you fight?
None of this ever happened.
So that was a f***ing lie.
What we get instead is an endless wave of
that was a poor midget.
Procedurally generated cookie cutter quests that spawn basic, nameless NPCs into the game to kill or steal from. Fantastic. Also,
logs and trees and all the way up to distant mountains, and if you've played our previous stuff, you know that mountain is not just a backdrop. You can walk all the way to the top of that mountain.
True, but elusive. Half the mountains in this game have nothing of interest on them.
Well, this sucks.
And there's no actual system to climb them. You'll have to stanky leg your way up a metric ton of ragged rocks, due to them not having actual pathways.
Stanky leg, push. Stanky leg, push.
Also, Todd definitely mentioned a working economy system.
We have a working economy that you can either
doing this movement in Skyrim so much to try to get up mountains has affected the way I play other games, and I'm trying to do that in other games now.
Pathways.
Stanky leg, push. Stanky leg, push.
Also, Todd definitely mentioned a working economy system.
We have a working economy that you can either do, you can actually sabotage this wood mill if you want.
And so am I going to be able to participate in that economy?
Slightly. It's kind of, you know...
Naturally, on launch, people want to see this groundbreaking mechanic in action, so they try to decimate the local economy by attacking the local sawmill. Nothing happens, because this feature never existed in the game in any form. The modding scene for Skyrim, absolutely massive. Immersion mods, quest mods, survival mods, graphics mods, other mods. Todd and the boys see this and start brainstorming.
No way!
And a few years after release,
how can we monetize this?
Unveils their brand new idea, paid mods on the Steam Workshop. They tell us it's to financially compensate modders, but then it comes out that mod creators receive just 25% of the revenue here. Valve get 30%, and then 40% kicked up to the big guy. Also, due to the complete lack of preparation, the majority of mods on here, amazing. A ton are plagiarized from the Nexus, and even from the same Steam Workshop. Naturally, the whole thing is incredibly unpopular, and Bethesda and Valve are forced to backpedal. Despite the consistent dumbing down, removal of features, roleplay regression, terrible writing, relentless jank, and honeyed words from Todd. Again, the game does insanely well. Within 2 days, it sells 3 million copies. A week, 7 million. A month.
I was really late to play Skyrim. I think I played it like a year and a half late. It was weird.
10 million.
I don't know what I was doing.
$1 billion in effect. And Bethesda Game Studios is now an institution. Skyrim, a cultural icon. To many, now the face of the open world RPG. Todd's 4th major game and his 5th Game of the Year award.
Thank you so much, everybody at Spike TV, everybody who supported this game, the whole team at Bethesda Game Studios. We've poured ourselves into this.
At this point, the man just couldn't miss. God Howard. People.
But when I did, I played it a lot.
4 for 4. A literal god. He could do no wrong.